big thing is making sure that guys are staying fresh and getting rested and getting their days off when they need to get them off, which will be huge, especially for down the stretch when you get closer to the playoffs.
Welcome to episode 231 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. We'd like to start this week off with some words of gratitude because, believe it or not, it was 6 years ago this week that we launched AlbertaDugoutStories.com. Little did we know we were about to embark on a journey that would include 500 plus stories, 800,000 plus words, and 200,000 plus page views. Not bad for a little passion project, but it wouldn't at all be possible without the support of all of you. So on behalf of Ian and myself, thank you for your continued support of ADS, and we can't wait to bring you the next 500 plus stories. In other news around Alberta's baseball scene this week, Wetaskiwin's Matt Coutney has been promoted by the Los Angeles Angels from Single A Inland Empire to High A Tri-City. The St. FX Baseball Academy product was hitting .277 with 10 homers and 41 RBI in 57 games for the 66ers. Big congrats to Matt on that move. Team Alberta's roster for the Women's National Championships has been set. Several familiar names, including Cassie Matlock, Sydney Moore, Caitlin Ross, and Madison Willen, will be heading to Nova Scotia in late July for Nationals, where Baseball Canada will then be able to choose its national women's team roster for the coming year. So best of luck to everyone on Team Alberta. And finally, a big congratulations to Alberta's Jordan Procession, Matt Lloyd, and Landon Brassa, as well as coaches Dustin Mollican and Mike Johnson on their performance with Canada at the Pan Am Games qualifiers over the last week. Procession hit .364 with a homer and 5 RBI. Lloyd hit .308 with a homer and 3 RBI, and Brassa made one relief appearance in his Baseball Canada debut. While Canada did finish 3-1 in the round robin to finish in a three-way tie for first, the tiebreaker unfortunately left them on the outside looking in for the final. We do, however, tip our caps to everyone on the team for representing the Maple Leaf with pride. Now we move on to the Western Canadian Baseball League, and it's been a wild few days with big wins, upsets, and of course a few rain delays. The league's power rankings are out, and Sylvan Lake has taken a hold of first place with Okotoks dropping to second and Moose Jaw now in third. On the stats front, Moose Jaw's Dawson Tweet continues to swing a hot stick with a .507 batting average. Eric Radachak is the leader in homers with 4 and RBI with 20, and Sylvan Lake pitcher Josh Tucker has taken over the league lead in strikeouts with 28, a category he ran away with last year en route to being named the league's most valuable pitcher. Speaking of Sylvan Lake, our first guest this week is head coach Jason Chatwood. The Gulls are hoping to take it to the next level this summer after beating Fort McMurray in the first round of last year's playoffs, only to fall to the eventual champion Okotoks Dogs in the West Final. This year, Chatwood brought back many familiar faces and, anchored by a pitching core sporting the likes of Tucker, Tyler Boudreau, Hunter Jones, and Josh Zanoli, they have put the league on notice that they're not messing around. Coach, thanks so much for joining us again here on the podcast.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
A great start to the season for the Sylvan Lake Gulls. In your books, what's been going right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of like it started a lot from like every night we've been each guy giving us a quality start and a chance to win, and then defensively making the routine plays and having throughout finding ways to win and create offense each night. There's been games where a couple games early we won 1-0, had a couple games where we were very very offensive, and then a couple games we just had with Moose Jaw where we just had to find ways to score any way we could, whether we getting guys over or long ball a little bit or making sure we score guys from third base with less than 2 outs. So yeah, I think that we're happy with we're starting to find ways to create offense in multiple ways, and our pitching's been very very good.
How impressed have you been in, I'll call it the resilience factor, but just the ability to find ways of winning and win different styles of games? Like sometimes it's, as you mentioned, the pitching duels, and then the next night it's like whoever's got last at-bat's probably going to win, that kind of game.
Yeah, I'm super proud of the guys. I mean, like you said, resilience, but I think it's like every night it seems it's competitive, right? Like every game's been competitive, whether it's the one-run games or the extra inning games or finding a ways to, you know what I mean? So, I mean, that's the one thing, too, that's nice is every night kind of showing up, and you definitely cannot take anyone for granted. And it's been a battle, games that we've won and lost. It's been, you can always look back and be like, if this play would have went different here or there, but it's very, very competitive, and it's been a lot of fun.
as a coach, do you look at it and go, we're lucky to be 12-5, or we're lucky to be in the spot we're at? Or is it one where, like, we earn this and this is where we deserve to be?
Yeah, I think we're, like, in a good spot. I think that, like, you can always look back and be like, man, there's a couple games that maybe, this or that happened. But then in hindsight, there's probably a couple games that we won where you could also look back and be like, wow, this really went in our favor, or we had this go our way. So I think in the game of baseball, things kind of even themselves out. So I would say we're very, very happy with where we're at and where we're playing, and hope to continue getting better and when we're moving forward.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the pitching staff. They're near or at the top of the league in virtually every category. When you look at their overall body of work, what's really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think our guys attack the zone early. Obviously, Coach Dave is doing a really, really good job with all the guys, and they're attacking guys early. I think they pitch with a lot of confidence, and I think that you can tell that they're very, very they trust the defenders behind them, so they're trying to go at guys early and trying to get ground balls early, and having the ability to. The big thing too is not to rely too heavily on anyone, and being able to use our bullpen and have guys for various situations is huge for us, especially with, the amount of games that we're playing and the amount of time that we play.
That being said, though, there's one guy on your roster that has really, I think, captured the attention of a lot of people dating back to even this spring with his time at Midland and another no-hitter. Talk about the Ty Boudreau effect and what he brings to that lineup.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ty's he's the ultimate competitor, in my opinion, right? And it's, whether his stuff is really, really, really good that day, or even if he's just got okay stuff, he just finds a way, right? And that's the one thing that impresses me is, for sure his compete factor is going to be 100% every time he gets on the mound, and that's huge. And I think when he's on the mound, that it brings a level of confidence throughout the whole lineup and in the dugout. And so it's been pretty special to kind of watch what he's done. Obviously from his spring season at school, and now carrying it on into Austin in his first few starts. So it's been good. I'm really, really happy for him, and he works hard too, right? So he's kind of getting what he's earned, and he's putting in the time, and he's. He definitely cares a lot about it. So it's happy to see the results he's getting.
It's crazy to look at your starting rotation, for example, and you're coming off a season where you had the most valuable pitcher in Josh Tucker. You got Boudreau doing his thing. Hunter Jones has been fantastic for you. I mean, that's got to be a really nice spot to be in, where your starter is going to be able to give you some really quality innings night in and night out.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's huge. It's like I said, we have, some of these guys that are returning, coming back to Sylvan, and you kind of have a really, really good idea of what you're going to get. And then obviously now some of our new guys that are, they're competing like crazy, and it's nice to see them in live action. And it's, it's, right now it just seems like everywhere that guy that's going out there, they're doing whatever they can and want to help the team win. And, regardless of it's a closing role or a late relief role or whatever it is. So that's the nice thing too. And also seeing the guys, how serious they take their work, before the games or on off days and that stuff too. So it's like you said, it kind of starts from there. So yeah, it's been great, and really, really happy for the guys.
You mentioned a lot of the old faces around the lineup. You have quite a few returning veterans from last year's team, and I'm only going to assume this, but it feels like there might be this feeling of unfinished business, and even especially in talking to a few of the vets around the table. How much of that was in the back of your mind as you were recruiting prior to the season?
Yeah, I think it's for the one thing, as a coaching staff, we've talked this year is, with so many returning guys, it just feels like the team has really, really clicked early. And when you have so many guys returning and then the new guys coming in, it's just such a welcoming environment. And the guys are comfortable with the community and surrounding areas of Sylvan Lake and the town. So it seems like the locker room has, they're very, very comfortable with each other right away. And then even some of our new players that weren't here last summer, they know some of the other guys coming in, right? Whether it's been playing at school together or playing together in the past. So it seems like it's been a very, very smooth transition, and we haven't had you know what I mean, that sometimes it takes a few weeks to kind of get used to everybody. It seems like the guys have sped that process up, which has been really, really nice.
One of the pieces that I've noticed too, especially looking up and down your roster, is that contingent of local talent. How important was that in putting together this roster again for the 2023 season?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. We have, you know, obviously in our area, the province, the baseball is growing like crazy, and so it's huge to be able to have some guys, you know, on our roster, or we had some guys on early contracts for the first, you know, 10 days of the season, and also being able to have some of our high school affiliates from the academy that are able to step in. So when, especially at the start of the year, when it's just kind of a trickling effect based on when guys are finishing their school seasons, it was huge. And then also some of our local guys that are you know, big leaders within the organization and the community has been great. And I think too, even the guys that aren't necessarily local, guys that have been back now, first time guys that this is their third year back, they almost feel local, if that makes sense, where it kind of seems like Sylvan's turning into their summer home. And I think the community has kind of like welcomed them to where, you know, they feel that too.
You mentioned that third year in the league thing, and typically when you have an expansion team, there's almost that grace period of, okay, there's going to be a couple of lean years to start things off. You guys haven't had that. You've been basically right at it from the get-go. What's been key in your eyes to making sure that you're not just in the mix, but in a early playoff contention right from the get-go?
Yeah, I think like quality people, like I really, really enjoy our kids that are coming up here, and, you know, talking to them, and you know, when we're recruiting players, the big thing is they're, you know, kids that they want to come and experience Sylvan, but they also are really focused. They want to work hard and they have goals. So I think that would be one thing is you know, finding a lot of guys that have similar qualities and are wanting to get a similar experience when they come up here. So that's been kind of nice so far that we've seen to be getting to work. And then also, like you said, guys that got a taste of it last year, and, you know, seen kind of how close we were, and got to experience a little bit of a playoff run. That, you know, it was before they left last summer, we're saying, like, I'd love to come back and do this again.
I've asked this of a few guys already this year from your squad, and I'm curious what your answer to this is going to be. How much do you hate the Okotoks Dogs?
Oh, I don't know. I think, I think when the game's on, you don't really like anybody you're playing against. I think that's kind of how it's meant to be. But I also, you know, for me on a personal level, like, I have a ton of respect for those guys, and I also have a lot of personal relationships with their coaches and players, and so I like those guys a lot, and I appreciate those guys a lot, and have good relationships with those guys. But I think it's, you know, I would hope that they answer the same way when the game goes on, right? We're not necessarily friends when the game's on. We're trying to beat each other, right? And then after the game, it can carry on. So that's what I would say, and I think it's good for the league. I think it's great to kind of, you know, and obviously we're such close proximity where, you know, you have those shorter bus rides, and sometimes you got fans from each places kind of traveling to go watch. So I think it is a lot of fun, but I also, you know, there's a ton of respect there for what they do and what they've done and what they do for the league as well.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I ask that is you guys face each other quite a bit over the course of the last, especially you look at the playoffs from last year, but even in the early going here, and it's become quite the rivalry really early on. And so I said it as a joke, I think, to Maddie Fung, one of the first episodes, and it just kind of took off from there. And the answers have been same across the board. I think whether it's Okotoks or Sylvan, there's a mutual respect, but when it's game on, it is definitely game on. So it's been great to see there. One more for you here, Coach, before I let you go. I know you're hitting the road here. When you look at this team, and obviously it's off to a great start, what do you got to do over the next few weeks and next couple of months here to make sure that you're on the right path and making sure that you're taking that step forward in getting a WCBL championship?
Yeah, I think that the big thing is we have a couple stretches on our schedule here where we get a lot of games with not a lot of breaks. So I think, you know, the big thing is making sure that guys are staying fresh and getting rested and getting their days off when they need to get them off, which will be huge, especially for down the stretch when you get closer to the playoffs. So I think that's the one thing that, you know, we're very confident in is the depth of our roster and being able to, move guys around and when one guy gets a day off, we don't feel like we're necessarily losing by putting someone else into the lineup. I feel like we're in a spot where we trust all the guys that they can get the job in when they're asked to go in.
Fantastic stuff. Well, Coach, really appreciate the time. Congratulations on the success to this point. Continued success the rest of the way. And thanks again for joining us here on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it for having me.
Next up is Okotoks pitcher Quinn Tocheniuk. He's a veteran of the squad, having pitched in the pandemic-abbreviated 2021, then becoming an anchor for the bullpen in 2022 with a 4-0 record and 1 save in 25 appearances, sporting a tiny .86 ERA. The Dogs Academy product has already made 6 appearances this summer, and the Rogers State University senior is hoping to add one more ring to his fingers in the not-too-distant future. Quinn, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You're another one of the veterans on this Dogs team. How's it been being back on Siemens Stadium field?
Great. I mean, coming off last year's championship, expectations are high. The fans were itching to get back, and it's the same old Okotoks coming back, knowing what you're going to play in front of. Great group of guys, and for me, at home, right? So I home for the summer, which is just an added plus. So far it's been great.
You mentioned the expectations. Does it come with any pressure now? Are you feeling it at all, whether it be yourself personally or even in the clubhouse?
I mean, there's a sense of pressure. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a game, but after a record-breaking year, winning the championship, it's kind of hard not to feel pressure. Like, we backed this up. And some of the seasons that guys had last year, I'm sure they felt a little bit that they had to go out and do the same thing again. But, I mean, end of the day, it's still just a game, so it's important to remember that.
You were one of the workhorses last year. You got into 25 games. You posted a sub-1 ERA, which is just incredible. What was working for you through the course of last season?
I think just coming in, being myself, throwing strike one, taking it an inning at a time. Not really too worried about the situation. Just going out there, doing my job and doing it day in, day out. And just kind of got into a routine and picked up from there and didn't really slow down.
Aside from the one rough outing with Sylvan Lake earlier in the season, you're back to your old habits with 6 appearances already. How much pride do you take in being able to be called upon in any situation or any moment?
It's huge. I mean, you always want to be the guy that gets the call in big-time moments, games, big-time innings. And it's great. I mean, I take a lot of pride in that. One of the guys that coaches can look down the roster and be like, okay, we know it's 3 or and give us a chance to win. So
you guys are obviously looking to repeat as champs, but looking back at last year's team versus this year's team, is there anything different that you're feeling this time around other than maybe just being a year older and a year wiser?
Not really. It kind of feels the same. I mean, going back to last year, kind of the rivalry with Sylvan, it's in full effect right now. Every game we play against them feels chippier than the last. But it feels pretty much about the same, which is great. But nothing too different, which is good.
I asked Matty Fung this of Sylvan Lake, and I'm curious from the other side how you're feeling. It used to be Okotoks and Edmonton. That was the big rivalry, and now it kind of feels like it's Okotoks-Sylvan. Do you two hate each other at this point?
I wouldn't say hate. I'd say it's more love for competition, honestly. I don't think any game is more important than the other, but when someone comes down, we go on the road to play them, there's kind of more of a sense of, all right, we got to lock it in for tonight.
As a group, your staff is pitching very well in the early going. You get to lean on a couple of pretty good coaches as well, including a former major leaguer in Lou Pote. What's it like having him in your corner?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Having that type of level. I mean, he's a World Series champion, so when he talks, you got to make sure you listen because what he's got to say is pretty important.
Has there been one piece of advice or word of wisdom that he's imparted on you that's really stuck with you over the last couple of years?
I mean, really just being confident in my stuff. Like, I'm out there for a reason. I'm on the team for a reason. Just got to believe it.
Mm-hmm. You're a Dogs Academy guy, as you mentioned, from Okotoks. What's it like getting to realize that dream that I'm sure you and many others have had, that as you're coming up through the academy, there'd be one day where you get to step foot on Siemens Stadium field in front of a packed house for a Dogs game? What's it like being able to realize that dream now?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, I remember for the 21 season when I got the call saying they wanted me to come back. It was like I got flashbacks working 50-50 when I was 15 for Canada Day and just trying to mow through the crowd selling 50-50 tickets. It was exciting, and I make sure not to take it for granted, because I see a lot of the academy guys looking up to us just like I looked up to the college guys when I was their age. And I try not to take any of this for granted because it'll be over before I know it. So,
has there been that moment, or maybe it happened really early on, or maybe you still take that moment where you kind of have to, I don't want to say pinch yourself, but you take that moment to take a deep breath when you're on the mound and just be like, okay, this is still like, this isn't a dream, right? Like, this is reality. I'm here realizing this thing that I wanted to do when I was in the academy.
I mean, it's almost every time I go out there. I mean, more so on opening day when it's packed, but, warming up in the bullpen, kind of reading the game and then taking a moment to see all the fans and the atmosphere. It's like I have to take myself out of it for a second just to remember that, like, this is something I wanted to do ever since I was 13. So.
Mm-hmm. You're coming off your first spring with Rogers State University in Oklahoma. Walk us through that experience. What was it like?
It was a bit of an adjustment. I mean, coming from small town Pratt in Kansas playing JUCO ball, then going to a 4 years, definitely a little bit of a adjustment I had to make. The competition, I'd say, was better. Who I was competing against for the spot, they were better. So I really had to dig deep and try to figure out what's going to get me to the next level. I had some success at JUCO, but JUCO's gone now. So how am I going to continue on at RSU?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that continuing on process, as you think about what you want to accomplish this summer, aside from obviously winning a championship, are there things that you're hoping to work on or that kind of thing to make sure that when you head back to university life that you're picking up where you're leaving off and you're able to become a bigger piece of that puzzle?
I think it's more so, for starters, staying healthy. While I was at Pratt, I had some issues with my knee. I tore my meniscus freshman year, which knocked me out for a little bit, and then injuries in my last year at Pratt. So biggest thing I think is staying healthy, but also staying competitive. I mean, it's easy to say, like, oh, it's the summer, like, I can take this off. I don't really have to show up today. Don't perform. So I think it's staying healthy and staying locked in is what's going to be big.
Mm-hmm. A few more rapid fire questions to wrap things up here, Quinn. First off, favorite ballpark you've ever either played in or been a spectator in?
Oh, man. Played at definitely Siemens Stadium for sure. But I've been to Coors Field. That was pretty cool, seeing the mountains over the horizon on the scoreboard. So
that's one that's definitely on my bucket list for sure. Coming out of the bullpen, what is your choice of entrance music?
I like to keep it kind of light. I don't want to come out to anything too heavy. So, being a Canadian kid, I think coming out to Tom Sawyer by Rush is a go-to choice for me.
It's not a bad one at all. Not to throw a teammate under the bus on this one, but who's most likely to demolish a pregame buffet?
Oh, jeez. Not to throw anyone under the bus. I guess it depends on the day, but I think Crosa might be one that he might be first in line.
I asked him a question about who snores the loudest on the bus, and he outed Tugboats. So, and luckily Tugboat's not there to back himself up, but I might have to bug him about that at a later date. Your best or your favorite Gatorade flavor, or are you a water guy?
I guess the blue one. I know blue's not really a flavor or color, but I water too. But if I'm going Gatorade, it's definitely blue.
It's funny how I was actually playing slow pitch the other day, and that was the first thing I said. I'm like, I want the blue one. I have no idea what the flavor is, but it's delightful.
Nobody calls it by its actual flavor.
No, God, of course not. Finally, best baseball advice you've ever received?
It's probably either got to be what Lou said about having confidence in my abilities, or last year Schmitty told me that, because I was dealing with nerves a little bit, and he said that like the butterflies that I feel aren't nerves, it's just the adrenaline kicking in, knowing that I'm ready to go out and do it. So whenever I get butterflies, I just kind of think back to that I'm not nervous, I'm just ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Very good advice. Final question for you here. What does the game of baseball mean to you?
Oh, man. I mean, it means everything to me. You know, it just started off as something that I did in the summers when I couldn't play hockey. And down the road now, I'm at university, still playing baseball, playing in front of the hometown crowd that I grew up watching. So, I mean, it means everything.
Very cool. Well, Quinn, really appreciate the time. Congratulations on all the success you've had at this point. Continued success in Okotoks and beyond. And thanks so much again for joining us here on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Finally, confidence is definitely a word you could use to describe Fort McMurray Giants outfielder Max Stagg. The product of Adelaide, Australia, Stagg was the first Aussie to be invited to the Perfect Game Showcase in 2022 and followed that up by committing to Central Arizona Community College. Before he even played a game there, he was given the opportunity to head to Fort McMurray and hasn't missed a beat, hitting .295 with a homer and 8 RBI in 21 games. A star in his home country, Stagg is hoping this is a sign of things to come in his collegiate career. Max, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you having me.
First off, welcome to Fort McMurray. Welcome to Alberta. How are you finding your stay so far?
Loving it, really. It's a bit of a different change of scenery, but being over here and playing baseball every day is nothing better. And I'm really enjoying it.
You're off to a solid start with the Giants. How would you grade your performance for the first few weeks here?
Pretty good, I'd say. I think I've acclimatized pretty well to the standard of collegiate baseball. I think already there's definitely been some ups and downs. So I guess kind of taking that in my stride and just working out a way to show up to the field every day and grind it out is pretty cool. So yeah, I guess it's been a challenge, but it's also been really rewarding to kind of see that I can kind of match it at the collegiate level.
You and I talked off air about sort of the ebbs and flows, and you're in a different spot because of the way that you took your off year and that kind of thing. So you're actually playing in the WCBL before you even step foot on a college level baseball field, basically at 300 almost. What's it mean to you to be able to perform at that level without having that experience and some of those teammates that you've got where they've got 2 or 3 or 4 years of college ball behind them?
Yeah, I think it's I think like I kind of said before, it's nice to be able to acclimatize and match it at this level before I've even stepped foot on a college baseball field. And it's definitely already this first part of the season's given me a lot of confidence going into college at Central Arizona, where it is going to be tough and it is going to be a grind, and that there will be guys fighting for spots. But I think from what I've already shown here in the WCBL is really promising. And it's just, I guess, a credit to my preparation, and also just the confidence I have in myself to come over here and match it with these guys that do already have that experience.
Talk about that preparation piece. You mentioned it. Is what were you doing to get yourself ready to make sure that you were hitting the ground running as soon as you cross the ocean?
I think good question. There's a couple different. It's a couple different things I did. I mean, baseball wise, it was just all about reps. It was breaking down mechanical parts of my swing and building arm strength. and just working on the little things and fine tuning things before I came over here. But the big part of my preparation was definitely in the weight room. You can always work on your body physically. You can always get bigger, stronger, faster. I think all of those different attributes and building my tools was definitely a big part of my preparation. And I feel like I've come over here and I'm more of a 5-tool player than I was before. And I think even as an Australian, a lot of guys that come from Australia and other international countries are put quite far behind in terms of lifting in the weight room, just because of our culture around it, compared to guys, say, that come from the US, where they do start lifting weights very early on in middle school and in high school. But I think definitely having that time off before I came over here, to be able to really work hard in the weight room and get myself physically prepared to come over here and match it with these guys was definitely important for my preparation.
Heading into the summer, did you have sort of an expectation or a mindset going in, knowing that you wanted to do a certain thing, right? Like, did you have any goals or aspirations going in to make sure that, because this was your first foray into quote unquote college ball, did you want to do anything to kind of get yourself ready for the first spring, I guess, of Central Arizona?
I think coming over here and playing summer ball was the main thing, was getting game reps, and getting acclimatized to college baseball. But there is also that part of me that does want to come over here, and anywhere I play, I'm trying to be one of the best players here, and I'm trying to put up numbers on the board and do whatever it takes for the team that I'm playing on to try win a championship as well. And that's really important to me. Being part of a team and being a good teammate as well is really important. So I guess, there's kind of two different mindsets in that.
How different has it been? And it's always, every year it's different here, is you've got different players from different areas, different countries. In your case, how have you found that acclimatization in terms of, gelling as a team this early on in the season?
Yeah, I think from a Giants perspective, we've gelled really, really well so far already into the season. I think having 2 road trips down already helps. And when you're spending that much time with your teammates on the road, you tend to gel pretty quickly. And I think, we've just got a really good bunch of guys, and I think that helps. And we've been pretty hot the last week or so. So I think that's coming to show. We had a bit of a slow start, but then we've kind of gelled really well together. And I think our performances in the last week or so have shown a result of us gelling really well together.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the championship piece. The Giants are coming off their very first playoff appearance last summer. What do you think needs to happen in the next few weeks and a couple months here to make sure you keep this momentum going and make sure that you improve upon the performance of last year's team?
I think, honestly, we just need to keep doing what we're doing at the moment. We've consistently got really good vibes around the team, whether we're winning or we're losing. There's a very balanced mindset in our clubhouse. And I think we've got a bunch of talented players that, when we put everything together at the field each and every day, we've got a good chance to come out on top against all of these teams in the league. And I think when it gets to the breaking point of the season, when it comes to playoffs, I have no doubt that we'll be in those playoffs. Once we start to put it all together and we get hot, I have no doubt that we can go all the way and win this championship.
When you arrived, did you have an expectation of the level of play, or has it, and beyond that, has it matched or exceeded your expectations? Because here in Canada, we think hockey and football probably 1 and 2. Baseball is not necessarily at the top 2 or top 3. How have you found that? Has it matched your expectations at all?
I wasn't really sure. I'm not really sure if I had any expectations of the level of play coming into it. I know it's a collegiate summer ball league, so there's always going to be that challenge and that competition with guys that have already played at the collegiate level. But like I kind of touched on before, is that any place I come into play, I already give myself the confidence to be able to compete, if not be better than a lot of the guys. I guess in terms of like a pitcher versus batter, I give myself the confidence to come out on top of the pitcher every single time I go to bat. So yeah.
You've used that word a few times already, and so I'm curious, where does that confidence come from?
Two different places. I think you've got to have a natural self-belief in yourself in elite sport. If you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe that you can be better than other people, then you've really got no shot, in my opinion, of being better than someone else. You've got to believe that you are. But I also think that preparation and having trust in your preparation is also a big factor. And I think coming into this summer season, my preparation, I tell myself that I did 100% everything I could, and there's nothing else I could have done more. So coming into this season, I have nothing but trust in that preparation, knowing that I did everything I could to that when I do come out on the field, that I can just play with confidence and play with trust that I do have the ability to play really high level baseball when I come over here.
I'm curious, going back in time a little bit here, what got you into the game of baseball in the first place? It's funny actually. So baseball isn't super big in Australia, but lots of kids through primary school play T-ball. And I came home one day and it was at school, and a couple of my mates, they said, "Oh, we're going to play T-ball." And this was 8-year-old Max. And and I said, "Oh, why not? We'll go out and try." I loved playing all different types of sports as a kid, and I thought I'd give T-ball a try. And then went out and played it as an 8 or 9-year-old, and I loved playing T-ball. And then I was really lucky enough that there were some pathways through the West Torrens Baseball Club who were running these T-ball programs, and they are now my local club that I've played right through to a men's senior level with now. So it's pretty cool to be able to say that I've gone right from T-ball through to a senior level at our community club back home. But I guess it just started from wanting to try a new sport back home, and I fell in love with it ever since. Well, and you're doing quite well at it. I mean, last year, for example, you were the first Australian to receive an invite to the Perfect Game National Showcase. What was that experience like from your perspective?
Amazing, really. It was super grateful for the opportunities from Baseball Australia and Perfect Game to be able to attend that event. And I think what it did for me was it allowed me to contextualize myself and put myself against the top 300 high schoolers in the US. And I think although maybe I may have been average or below average at that event, what it did for me was it allowed me to come back home and know what I had to do to reach the level of those guys now that I had seen them firsthand. And even baseball and in the weight room, you see some of those guys, and they're not any 18-year-old kid. There's some big guys. There's some big guys at that event. And I think coming back and talking with my strength and conditioning coach about what we need to do for me to get to get around that size and to get around that level of strength was really good. And I guess it just made me push even harder to try and reach that level.
You've been able to represent Australia at a number of different events as well. What's that meant to you to be able to wear the A on the hat of the Australia across the chest?
It means everything. There's anyone that's ever represented their country, I think they could say there's nothing greater than that as an athlete. And I think to me, to be able to wear Australia across your chest I take a lot of pride in it and take a lot of honor in that. And I can't wait to be able to do it again at some point in the future, because it's really, really special to be able to step out on the field and they play your national anthem, and you can you just take a lot of pride in representing the people from your country.
How closely were you watching the World Baseball Classic and thinking to yourself, that could be me one day?
Pretty closely. I'm not gonna lie. I think that it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because I wasn't only just watching it closely, thinking that it could be me one day, because I have no doubt in my mind that it could be me one day. But it's funny, I've got a lot of people I know, friends that I've played with who are in that team. So it's quite cool watching people that I personally know play at that world stage. I mean, there was guys that played they played against Team Japan, Team Korea, Cuba. So there's big leaguers on these opposing teams, and there's guys from Adelaide, from our indie ball team, that are playing against the likes of Shohei Ohtani. So it's pretty cool to see those guys on the big stage. But I do like what you said about, it is cool being from Australia, that it is a possibility to play on that team in the future.
Especially given I'll call it the buzz around this year's tournament, right? Like it was like something a lot of people have never seen before, like international baseball played at that level with that kind of fan participation, that kind of thing. And especially in that division, like the stadiums were just absolutely rocking. Did it kind of give you, I'll call it chills to a certain extent, like thinking, man, oh man, if this thing continues to grow, like by the time I'm on the radar, this could be something just absolutely wild.
Definitely. I think even myself watching the games, it was a cool kind of feeling of like we did really well, and it's a cool feeling to know that the more we can compete and put up better numbers and finish in the placings higher at these world events, the more the sport is going to grow back home. And I think that's really exciting as a country, is that seeing Australia finish 6th in the World Baseball Classic and beating Team Korea and just missing out on a win to Cuba in the quarterfinals is really exciting for the, I mean, I'm 19, but even for the 14, 15, 16-year-olds that are aspiring to play on Team Australia as well. And it's just going to be, it just sparks a continual growth in the sport back home. So it's really promising to see that. And there were, I guess, some of those chills watching the games. And it's a cool kind of feeling when it's a smaller country, but we punch way above our weight.
Mm-hmm. You're no stranger to traveling abroad to play baseball. As someone who grew up outside of North America, I'm curious, do you notice the difference in playing styles, whether it be, Canadians or Americans or other countries?
Yeah, I think coming to the WCBL, but also playing at the U18 World Cup, even at the U18 World Cup, the things that our coaches touched on with us as a team was that the game style is a lot quicker over here. There's guys that are throwing harder, there's guys run the base paths faster, and there's guys that just simply hit the ball harder. So that just creates a game style that's a lot faster in general. So I think that's something that I've had to get used to, and it's something that as a country we have to get used to at these international events. It's just that the game's just fast over here, and it's just something we have to get used to.
Speaking of the worldly view, I'm always curious. When I talk to athletes who move across a country, for example, and talk about that trepidation of moving, a couple of provinces over or a couple of states over, it's one thing. It's another to move countries and oceans apart from home. Did you have any trepidation taking that step to try to chase the baseball dream in North America at all?
I think I've always known it's what I've wanted to do, and coming from a place where you do have to travel thousands and thousands of kilometers to live out your dream, it definitely comes with sacrifices, but that couldn't be done without I guess having that dream, and also it couldn't be done without the support of friends and family back home who are with me every step of the way. And I think that's what's made this journey so far so easy for me, is that I know that they're a text message or a phone call away to check in with how I'm doing, and that they're with me every step of the way and supporting my dreams of college baseball and then hopefully professional baseball in the near future.
Have they been able to check out any webcasts or anything like that? Are they giving you pointers and that kind of thing, whether it be, your folks or maybe your old coaches, that kind of thing?
No one back home is really too into it to be checking in and giving me pointers and stuff. But they're definitely checking in every day to see how I'm doing, and watching the live stream every now and then to, I don't know, just watch the games and check how I'm doing. But no, not to the extent of giving me any pointers or anything.
How cool would it be one day to fly, your close friends and family along down, or bring them up here and see a game and watch you do your thing?
It would, yeah, it'd be amazing. It would mean the world. I think that's the goal one day, is to get to a point where I can make that possible for my friends and family. There's definitely been lots of talk with my school friends and with my family about that. Hopefully one day they can come over and watch, and that would be really special to me.
Very cool. Aside, obviously, from the pro aspirations, talk a little bit, you mentioned it earlier, about those goals and dreams of growing the game back home. What do you hope to do personally to make sure that the kids back home believe in the dream that they might have that's similar to the one that you had?
I think all I can do right now is just keep playing baseball the right way and keep being a role model and an ambassador for Baseball Australia and for the kids that play baseball back home. Is I think representing Australia has been really important in kind of my mindset of rechecking into being a positive role model, and that there are lots of kids out there who do have the same aspirations as I had of being able to travel over here and play collegiate baseball. But yeah, I think I'm really fortunate as well. I've got support. I'm part of the scholarship program through Sport Australia Hall of Fame. So Sport Australia Hall of Fame have recognised me as a scholarship athlete. I'm the first baseball player in that program, so I was really fortunate to have been recognised as an ambassador, not only through Baseball Australia at these international events, but as an Australian sporting body funded by the government. They've recognised me, I guess, as one of those role models in our community. So it's really special to be in a position where I guess I'm starting to have some influence on growing the sport back home. Yeah, it's really special.
Very cool. Final question for you here, Max, before we let you go. What does the game of baseball mean to you?
Oh, good question.
It's the one we ask everyone, surprisingly, but it's one of those things. It's hard not to get romantic about baseball, right? So we love throwing this question at everybody.
You're not wrong. I could go on for hours about what the game of baseball means to me, but in short, it's far out. I think the game of baseball has just allowed me to grow and mature as not only as an athlete but as a human. I think there's so many different aspects of the game that allow you to learn and to grow and to mature, whether it's failing, whether it's learning how to be a friend or a teammate. I think there's all of those different attributes in being a good human. You can learn a lot of those through playing the game of baseball. I think it's also taught me how to be very disciplined and committed to what I enjoy doing. And it's been a passion. So I'm one of those people that if I find a passion and I want to be good at something, for me it's baseball, then I'm going to wake up every day, rain, hail or shine, and I'm going to put my best foot forward to try put 100% effort into being better than I was yesterday at baseball. So yeah, it means a lot. I could go on for hours, but that's probably in short, that's probably one of the easiest answers.
And we could probably go on for days with you as well, Max. Really appreciate the time. Congratulations on all the success you've had to this point. Continued success going forward. And thanks again so much for joining us here on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again to Jason Chatwood, Quinn Tocheniuk, and Max Stagg for joining us this week. And thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. If you haven't already, leave us a rating and review on your podcast app to help spread the word about ADS. A major tip of the cap as well to our Platinum supporters for all they do for us and for baseball in Alberta. The Okotoks Dogs and AHP Academy have been integral parts in helping us tell the game stories in our province. For more on our phenomenal teammates, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.